Today's episode of Dungeon Crawlers Radio is brought to you by Gamers Inn, your one-stop location for all your gaming needs. Located in Lehigh City, Utah, their fun and friendly staff will be more than happy to answer any of your gaming needs. Just remember, Gamers Inn, it's where adventures begin.
It's time to power up.
Autobots, roll out! Broadcasting live from the DCR studio.
Oh yeah!
The Geek Revolution starts here.
Excellent!
Get ready for the #1 hit geek radio show out there.
Well, it is impressive, isn't it?
Because it's time for Dungeon Crawlers Radio.
Let's get ready to rumble! And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Dungeon Crawlers, where we have the amazing, the talented, well, he's going to be throwing out tons of gifts at you, author James Wymore, to talk about his final book in the Actuator series, as well as some really cool free stuff that you'll want to listen to find out what you're going to get. So I'll let you take it away from here.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited to be on. I love Dungeon Crawlers. I listen all the time. One of the best podcasts out there.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it. So, the final book in the Actuator series has come out. You've brought everything to a conclusion, and, you know, this is going to be exciting. So,
Yeah, it is.
So, for all of the listeners, stay tuned, because later on, you're going to learn out how some free stuff that you can get and cool stuff like that. So, yeah. We love having people come back, and it's always great when authors come back to talk about other books, and you've been on multiple times, as well as just kind of a special guest that's added to the mix. So now we have the final book of the Actuator series. Everything kind of is getting wrapped up, and what are we expected to see here in the finale?
Well,
without giving away too much.
Sure, okay. Maybe, well, let me think.
Or should we backpedal and talk about...
Maybe we should backpedal a little bit, because I'm not really sure how to fill in the holes yet.
Okay, we can backpedal a little bit. You can talk about the series a little bit, and then move forward.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so the series is about a machine. And the machine is created by this scientist who wanted to transmute the Earth into a utopian paradise.
Okay.
Make everything beautiful for everyone. And he feels like human nature stands in the way of that, because individuals have more to gain by not cooperating and by not being part of the system. But if everybody is pulled into the system and it's transformed all at once, then everybody has the best benefit. Anyway, so he designs this machine, and he wants to turn the world into a beautiful place to help everybody, and his wife helps him. But something goes wrong, as things often do. And the machine is, and so you kind of follow that drama later. But where this whole thing starts is with a character, Red McLaren, who's out on a kind of field trip with some of the people from a military base, a secret military base, and the actuator goes off, and they have dampeners that are designed to hold the effect within a certain area, so it can transmute this area, and it can turn it into anything that you can imagine. But the dampeners are broken by a saboteur intentionally. And instead, the whole world is transformed into patches of every kind of genre fiction. And so literally in one place, you're standing there and you have a sword and a shield and a dragon is chasing after you, and you run across the street to get away, and all your stuff changes, and now aliens are coming down to invade, and you have a ray gun. And it has, I mean, there's there's pirates, there's orcs, there's vampires, there's pretty much anything you can think of somewhere in this world. And there's only a handful of people who even know about this machine because the government's been keeping a secret ever since they found it abandoned, and they built this military base around it. And so this group of people who know about the machine, they're trying to put the world back before everyone else dies, trying to figure out what went wrong, why did it go wrong in the first place. But the local area, the military base itself, is turned into a fantasy realm. And so everything is magical and medieval, and the commander of the base is turned into a dragon. And so she's rampaging all over the place, killing everybody, and protecting this machine from anybody who wants to get to it. And so the people who are on the base all have to escape as fast as they can. A lot of them just die. And the ones who escape are trying to figure out how to get this base back, how to get this machine back, etc. So it's kind of a action adventure, crazy little fun time.
No, I love the fact that you can pretty much do anything you want with this series. You know, it's got fantasy elements, it's got sci-fi elements, it's got aliens, it could have dinosaurs, it could have a little bit of anything and everything, which is fun.
It does have all those things. So yeah, it was really fun. It was actually a lot harder to write than I first expected, though.
Why is that?
Well, because it's like writing a whole bunch of short stories. I mean, the plot continues and the characters continue, but every time the characters walk across one of these borders, everything they're holding, their clothes, changes. And they're in a new place, in a new genre. And so I have to go and build a whole new world. It's kind of like a whole bunch of mini worlds all over the place.
Okay.
And so, writing this book, the characters would be cruising along in a hover car, and then they would hit this boundary, and the hover car would change into something. And I literally had to stop writing and go look up maps and go read other books and look up references. And it was just a huge amount of research that I didn't expect when I first started.
So, hover car, I'm guessing, isn't very far off the ground, maybe 3-4 feet, unlike a flying car? Or would
I think
it be
so.
more? Okay. Because, I mean...
there's all different kinds. So there's hover cars that are low, there's flying cars, there's going to be everything somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I just wonder, because you hit that boundary, and if you're like 3-4 feet off the ground, you hit the ground, you roll a little bit, you're okay. But you're in a hover car that's 30-40 feet in the sky, moving at top speed, that might cause a problem.
Right. Actually, if I remember right, I think I do, the boundary that the hover car flies through, it turns into a steamship, like an airship from steampunk.
Oh, okay.
So they don't fall to the ground.
All right. So it just converts from one flying vehicle to another, and then they got to figure out how to fly it.
Right. I mean, there is always the danger that it will turn into something weird and you won't know what to do.
Yeah.
But it kind of follows a sort of internal logic, because the people that were using the machine, the minds that were interacting with the machine to try to change the world at the time, they all have very specific stereotypical ideas. And so there's certain rules that flow naturally from the negotiation between those areas.
Yeah.
If you have a crossbow, it's going to turn into a gun. If you have a knife, it's still going to be a knife. Because there's knives in places where they use guns, and so the knife's not going to turn into anything. It might look a little different, but everything just morphs as you go along. And so a lot of the people in the world are also changed. Some of them are turned into orcs. Some of them become pirates. Some of them become vampires. Just because you're in these areas, you get sucked into that area. And so all the security guards on the military base, when it becomes a fantasy, they all turn into orcs. And so now they all are acting like orcs. They start being, having a hard time talking, and they start fighting with other people.
Interesting. So when they go into these different realities or boundaries and worlds, do memories and things change?
That's a good question. And they sort of do. It depends. If
Okay.
For the people who know about the machine from the base, they're called machine monks, which is just a nickname that they were given because they work so closely with it. And these machine monks, and they're just people with kind of like obsessions. And so one of them is obsessed with fantasy, and that's why the base turned into a fantasy realm. And so these machine monks, they kind of know what's going on. They know about the actuator. They know about these realms. They know about these genre changes that are affecting everyone. And so they have a little bit more resilience. But average people, a workaday guy who's a truck driver, and suddenly he turns into a carriage driver and he's delivering his goods via carriage instead of truck. A lot of times their memories and their ideas change with them.
Okay.
They get, the machine is not really kind to people. It just grinds them into whatever picture it's supposed to be. And so you become a delivery driver. Now you're driving a carriage. You might have faint memories of your past life, but you feel like you're in the right place. You know your part in this new world. And so not everyone. There's people with resilient minds and there's people who don't buy into it or whatever, but a lot of people just kind of line up with whatever it is their new job is and start doing it.
Interesting. So,
Of course,
go ahead.
a lot of people die
Yeah.
because all genre fictions are extremely dangerous.
Yes.
And so now there's dragons and aliens and robots rampaging everywhere. And a lot of the people are getting killed by things they can't even understand.
Hey everyone, we hope you're enjoying this show. We just want to take a moment of your time to tell you about the amazing, awesome Black Friday deals that Paragon City Games has going on right now. Now, Paragon has been a fantastic partner to work with, and we just wanted to let you know of some really awesome stuff they have going on, like their sleeveless deck box combos. Those are part of their Black Friday deals. Board Game Bonanza, their miniature reductions. Yeah, kind of funny. It sounds like miniatures will be reduced in price, as well as their board games are going to be on sale. And they also want us to let you know that their new website will be going online very soon, so that you can pick up all of these exciting deals for Black Friday. So if you have any questions or thoughts, give Alton and his team a call. They'd be more than happy to assist you in picking up some really awesome Christmas items this year. But definitely check out their Black Friday deals. Give them a call. And not only that, there still will be amazing deals that will be rolling into the Christmas season. So with that said, check out Paragon City Games, their Black Friday deals, and all of the amazing stuff that you'll be able to get from them for your Christmas needs. 2 free books, even better.
2 out of 5 books in the series are free, and the other 2 are just 99 cents.
Cool. So, with everything that's going on, the final book's out. You have an RPG that is based around this book series, which the book series in itself is awesome and self-contained and multi-genre in so many ways. What made you decide, besides writing the book, to go and create an RPG based on it?
Well, that's just because my younger self, back when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with role-playing games, and but there was always a thing that bothered me. When I played 1, it was fine, and I liked leveling up and all that stuff. But if I tried to change to a different game, I always wanted my characters just to transfer right over.
Yeah.
So I could build somebody up in Dungeons and Dragons, and then maybe I wanted to try Spycraft and play a spy game, but I didn't want to start all the way over at level 1. And it didn't really bother me, but I didn't it was just something that I remember thinking when I was a teenager. And then when I wrote the Actuator series, I realized it's a perfect vehicle for exactly that kind of thing. It's a perfect setup story for transferring from one role-playing game to another. And so after the first book and the anthology were both out, and I was working on the second book, I just couldn't resist. I had to put together this role-playing game. It's actually an adaptation. It works for any role-playing game system. So it's not, in and of itself, it's not a game. It doesn't have like dice rules or anything like that. It just shows how to bridge, using this Actuator storyline, how to bridge from one story to another and just transfer characters from one place to another.
Nice. And that makes it, at least in my opinion, super convenient, because you do have cases where, like you said, you want the one character to go from D&D to Spycraft, or to Castles and Crusaders, or even to Firefly, and that's kind of, you have to make a new character for every time you play. So to be able to play the same character but with different weapons and rules is kind of interesting.
Well, and that flows naturally out of the storyline, because in the story, what happens is the characters, because of the Actuator breaking the world up into these different realms that are ruled by different genres. So because of that, you can literally, as you cross this border, you can change the stuff you're carrying changes, the clothes you're wearing change to match the new genre. And so you might have had a crossbow before, but now you have a shotgun. And then you cross another border, and your shotgun turns into a ray gun from a 1950s sci-fi. And you cross another border, and it turns into a harpoon gun. It just, everywhere you go, your stuff is adapting to the situation you're in.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's lots of fun. And I can see where that can be really useful. So it does, the rule set that you mentioned, it doesn't have kind of like its own rules. It's basically using the game rule sets that you're currently using, or
right.
Okay. So if we were to go from, say, D&D, which is your traditional role-playing system, 7 dice, and then go to a Firefly world, you jump to using their game mechanics and to more of a dice pool system, correct? Is that
yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, basically, you're just jumping tracks to a new game. So whatever game you were playing, it's fine. You have your character sheet, right?
Yeah.
And then the game master, as part of the story, would have to incorporate this Actuator situation, where this Actuator breaks up the universe, or you move from one piece to another. And in that process, you literally translate your character. And it has examples and charts that help you do that part. We literally translate your character into the new rule base, and then you just keep going.
Okay.
It's kind of like that silly Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from the 80s.
Yes.
Where they were in like the real world, and then they were sucked back into medieval fantasy, and then they would come back.
Yes.
It's kind of like that, except for not silly.
Well, and Venger was always fun, watching him run around with only one horn on his head and being voiced by Peter Cullen, but hey. Yeah, it was definitely interesting, and but I like how this game system kind of works that way. Well,
and it taps into, I mean, it's an overarching story. You could use it as a campaign, and it describes all the stuff you'd build, but depending on which game you play, I believe something like GURPS is really easy to switch between.
Yeah.
And changing systems, but it, like I said, there's really no limit. You could play Star Wars, and then you can play, Age of Dragons or whatever. It doesn't matter, because it's designed to jump between.
Nice. I would really like to see how you go from an Evil Dead role-playing game to Star Wars. That would be very interesting, but it would work. It could work.
Well, the Actuator machine has a whole bunch of compromises it makes. So sometimes the things you have will turn into something better. So maybe you have a pistol, and you cross over into this fantasy world, and now it's a magic wand.
Yeah.
If you have a pocket knife, it's probably going to be a knife everywhere you go because every story has knives.
Yes.
And if you had a lightsaber, it might turn into a baseball bat, which is way less awesome. It depends on the situation.
Maybe it's a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire.
There you go.
That's a little bit more dangerous than a baseball bat.
Well, that's also dipped in oil and burning.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah.
Now you got a lightsaber.
Yes. It's lit up and it's sort of a saber. Anyways, so what got you to into deciding to write this particular series? Just because you're kind of dipping your toes in everything all at the same time, and that's got to be really hectic. I mean, especially if you're crossing these boundaries. How do you keep everything straight? It almost sounds like you have to have a massive Bible sitting on your desk of, this is where this is, and this is what's going on here, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I made tons of maps. I made charts, and if nothing else, I would just have to go back and look at an area again before I rewrote it. It was kind of a ton of research. I didn't expect how much work it was going to be going into it, and keeping track of everything was just charts after charts. And ironically, when I went to make the role-playing game, it was surprisingly easy because I already had all these charts made.
Okay.
I just converted them into the format of the game module, and then they were, because they were already built. I didn't put a ton of maps in there because I think, people will make the maps the way they want, but
yeah.
I made my own maps, obviously, for the story in the books.
Nice. No, that works out really well. So what got you into writing in the first place? I know we've maybe asked this before, but writing is one of those professions that, as you've reminded me time and time again, it takes a while before you get any rewards coming in, if not at all.
If ever, right? Yeah. Well, Terry Brooks, I went to a book signing with Terry Brooks, and he said, if you don't have to write, then do something else.
Okay.
Because writing is terrible in payback. You spend tons and tons of hours alone, agonizing over these stories, and then, people read it in a very short time, and most of the time, not that many people read it either. So it's this huge labor with a very small payback. But for some of us, we have to write. It's just part of who we are. Once I started writing, it became this kind of mental exercise that I needed. I needed to kind of exercise my demons in a weird way. And so I just had to write. Before my first book was published, I wrote 12 books. And it didn't matter if that book was published or not. I was going to write another book. I knew that. And so publishing kind of became the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
But writing would happen. I would write whether I was published or not, because I just love being in that mode, in that world building, in that process, being in the characters' minds and exploring what it says and what it means. And so I couldn't choose otherwise. The Actuator series is kind of funny because I started it when I had the idea. I was talking to a friend of mine, R.A. Baxter. His first book is coming out in a few months. And we were just chatting, and I had this idea for a machine. And I said, what if a machine could make the world into anything you want? And we just did this little philosophy discussion for a little while about what would it be right, would it be wrong? And then, of course, the idea came, I should write this into a book. And I started working on the book. And that's when I got the idea to have all these different genres come out of it and such. But when I wrote it, I wrote about 6 or 7 chapters and about 100 pages of, not 100, maybe like 50 pages of back information, just building up this world. And then it was so complicated, I felt like I couldn't do it. It just got so bogged down and hard that I didn't work on it for a while. And then later, when I was talking to Aiden James, he said, hey, let's do a project together. And we started throwing ideas back and forth. And one of the things I mentioned was this actuator book, and he just grabbed it. He's like, that's it. That's what we want to do. And I mean, he was more of a like sideline help, but it was the motivation I needed to have a partner push through this project. And so I dusted off the old stuff, sent it to him. He helped me work through some of the difficulties, and then it just started to roll like a train.
Nice. That's, it's nice when things kind of work out that way.
Yeah.
So now that it's over, though, what's the next step? I mean, because the series is done, where do you go next from here?
Well, I left a tiny loophole in the series so that I could open it up again if I want to.
Okay.
But actually, talking to long-term fans who've read all the books, including the last one, nobody has found it until I told it to them. And then when I tell it to them, they're like, oh, duh, that's so obvious. So I left a little window that I could get through if I want to do some more, but it's pretty well closed off. I mean, it comes to a fiery finale. And so I'm really happy with where it is. I've actually been working on another book, in a different direction. So this one was written over a year ago, obviously.
Yeah.
It takes for publishing to happen. And so in the meantime, I've started working on another project.
Okay. And, I mean, can that project be mentioned, or is it just a future project to everyone to pay attention?
I'm about 20,000 words in. I'm going much slower on this one, but it's called Virtues and Virtual Reality.
Okay.
And it's about a future city that is a post-labor society. So everything's done by robots. All you do, you just do whatever you want, because all the food comes to you by robot farmers, and all the cleaning is done by robots, and all the clothes are made by robots, and you can just do whatever you want. But because a lot of humans, that kind of lifestyle isn't really compatible with them, they wouldn't really be happy like that. Or they would get into mischief or cause wars or something. I don't know. So there's a filter system, and the filter system is a virtual reality game where you go in and you play, like it's like 2 years long, and you play this whole life of in a virtual reality situation. And then based on what you do in that virtual reality, they can analyze it and see if you're compatible with living in a post-labor society. And that's the premise of the story.
Wow. Okay.
And so people trying to get into this elite society are trying to pass this test, but you can't fake it. It's not something you can study for. It's part of it actually analyzes your psyche through the course of the test. And so you either are compatible or you're not. And of course, who wouldn't want to live somewhere where everything is done for you? All the food is free. You could be an artist or a writer. I think some of my desire to be, write full time instead of having a day job, I think that comes out a little bit in that desire.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a little reminiscent of, I would have to say, like the test in Divergent, where it's not really something you can study for. It just, you go in, you don't know what it's going to happen, and you just react and do what you need to. And then it determines based on that what faction you get put into. So it's kind of like that, where, this. I mean, how do you study for a test that would determine something like that?
Right. Well, you really can't. I mean, this test, you actually live you believe you're living a whole nother life.
Oh wow.
You're in a full immersion virtual reality, and you don't realize, you forget the rest of your life, and so you think you think that this is your life. And they can use that testing information to decide if you're compatible with living in a post-labor society or not.
That's crazy. And how do you deal with that coming out? I mean, because you've lived this whole life, and then suddenly they pull you out. I mean, kind of like the Matrix, and then suddenly you're smack dab with another reality. That that in itself has to be difficult and frustrating.
Well, it might be, but here's the design. You actually think you're born and you grow up as a child and a teenager and an adult and an old person, and then you die.
Mm-hmm.
So you thought you were dead, and then you wake up and you come out of the game and you remember that it was just a game. And the game is compressed time because you're in this full immersion virtual reality. You don't have to, like, a lot of the stuff that we normally do doesn't have to happen. You don't have to sleep, for example. It just fast forwards to the next part where you wake up. And things that you do over and over, like work, it just automatically skips through them. Kind of like that movie Click.
Yeah.
You know, where it skips the parts that are wrote, and it's only the decisions that it really tracks.
Yeah.
But you think you're living a whole life, and when you get done, you wake up and you thought you were 85 yesterday, and now you're 20 again.
Very interesting.
It's kind of fun. I've been playing with it for a while, but it's kind of deep, so it takes a lot of time to analyze the stuff as I'm building.
Yeah. Very interesting. I like it. But at the same time, there's a lot of questions. You know, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with that type of situation? So, wow.
Well, and all the characters are going to be different, how people act and how they deal with it. And there's kind of drama going on outside of the game. So while people are in the game, there's other stuff happening. I mean, the whole life is still going on.
Yeah.
And so the two kind of like play off of each other. I'm actually a discovery writer, so I don't really know where it's going.
I totally get that one.
Tying all the people together and creating problems and then see where they go.
You have a loose idea, and then eventually, hopefully, it comes to a story.
Yep.
Yeah. Fun. All right, so the book is officially out.
Yes,
It's
The Last Key.
It's on sale.
Yep.
And not only that, the rest of the series is on sale to the point where you can get 2 of them for free, as well as one of them for only 99 cents. So literally, this is like the best time and probably the most inexpensive time to buy an entire series.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, if you just Google my name, James Wymore, you'll find my blog where I posted a whole list of the links to all the books. So if you go to jameswymore.wordpress.com, if you go there, the recent blog post has all of them. And so you can just go to book 1, which is free. And that's the story we were talking about. And then also the Borderlands anthology, which is 16 stories by international and award-winning authors, all set in the Actuator world. And at first, they don't connect to the main storyline. But in books 2 and 3, they actually, some of those characters get pulled into the main storyline.
Oh, nice.
And so it's kind of a part of it. You probably want to read book 1 first and then the Borderlands anthology. And then books numbers 2 and 3 are both 99 cents. Also, the role-playing game manual is free.
Sweet.
So you can just go follow that link. It'll take you to rpgnow.com. You can download that one for free as well. And then the 2 books that are 99 cents, and then, of course, the new book. So you can just find it all there, less than $8, more than 500,000 words.
That is awesome.
So it is a great, I mean, even if it doesn't really strike your fancy, it's free, so it's not like it costs you anything to get into it.
Yes. No, that's awesome. And I like the fact, because there's a lot of times where sales go on, and it's always fun when you can get an entire series, especially if you're jumping into it and then you like it and you're like, oh man, I got to wait another year for another book. But now you can get all 4 books.
Oh,
in one go.
I hate waiting for series to come out. I'm so impatient about that. Sometimes I won't even read them. Sometimes I'll just wait. I know I want to read a series, but I'll wait until the whole thing's done before I even start it.
Wow.
But now you don't have to wait.
Nope, you don't. So, all right. Well, we're out of time, folks. Run out. Go get your copy now. And by saying go get your copy, go get all 4 copies because you can do it now. Don't wait because who knows, maybe next week you have to pay full price for all of them. Which
they're totally worth.
I mean, James isn't going to complain about that, but it is Christmas time. So buy more than one. Buy multiples and send them to your family. So, yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, where can the listeners find you? On social media? Are there any upcoming signings or any events that you're going to be doing soon?
Well, I'm on social media, Facebook and Twitter. Just look for James Wymore. Should be able to find me. I have like my blog at WordPress. And then, of course, you can just go on Amazon and type my name in and find all the stuff there. And I will be at book signings probably, I think the next thing I have lined up for is in February.
Okay.
So Annex and LTUE, always good.
Okay. So keep an eye out for him. Go find him on Facebook and Twitter. And with that said, we'll catch you next time.
You're listening to Dungeon Crawlers Radio. Please subscribe and follow them on Facebook or Twitter, precious. No, we're even promoting these filthy idiots. Who doesn't like them? Who doesn't like anyone? No, they're our friends, precious, our friends. No, shut up. Please subscribe.